Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Strategy Session. I am Lisa Senecal, and I am here with the Rick Wilson, the Joe Trippi, and the Stuart Stevens.
Yes.
Thanks, guys, so much for being here, as always, tonight, and for letting me hop in the host chair, since we're doing a special 1 hour brief conversation up top, and then we have a lot of questions that subscribers and members sent in to us. So we are going to be getting to those pretty quickly. First, I wanted to it occurred to me today, I feel like I've sort of been in this time warp since the election. It's almost been a month. It feels like it's been a couple of weeks and a couple of years at the same time. There's this weird churn going on where there's a lot of stuff happening and yet nothing really happening right now. Where are you guys at with both what you see Trump doing and what you don't see the Democrats doing or the media doing right now? Go ahead, Rick. You look like you're ready to dive in.
Well, what we're doing, right now, the Lincoln Project is doing one of our periodic acting like a duck things. We are steady on the surface because we've analyzed all this moment that we've encountered, but there's a lot going on under the surface right now. We're preparing at this moment to do a lot of things that we think are going to be vital elements of a strategy to oppose Trump going forward. Because look, we lost an electoral battle. We all know it. We understand it. We lost an electoral battle, but we're going to do 5 big things at the Lincoln Project and in our other pro-democracy work and here on Resolute. We're going to fight all of these appointments, tooth and nail. We're going to fight every one of them. It's not going to be, Marco's fine, but RFK is bad. These people are all a part of a corrupt, terrible, dangerous, anti-small d democratic enterprise. So we're going to stop the worst of them. We're going to expose the rest of them. We're going to attack the disinformation infrastructure. MAGA, it thrives on lies and lying and distortion and propaganda. We have to expose it. We have to counteract it. We have to push back against it. We're going to hang the sins of Trump and Project 2025 and the coming chaos that he's going to create around the necks of all of the MAGA elected representatives in the Senate and the House. Those people cannot take the same amount of pain Trump can. To do that, we're gonna make sure that we hold them to account for their votes. We're going to remind people how they voted, who they supported. When these policies start having terrible effects on families in this country, we're going to remind people, oh, yeah, Susan Collins talked a good game, but she did this. Oh, yeah, Jim Langford said he was going to oppose Trump, but did that. All those people that are out there who feel a little bit nervous right now should. We're going to get ready for the 2026 and 2028 election cycles by setting the predicates for what they're going to be about. We're going to try to engineer a 1994, a 2006, a 2010 effect in 2026. And finally, we're going to lead with courage. We're not going to be quiet. We're not going to shut up. We're not going to comply in advance. We're going to fight these fuckers every day. So, that's sort of where we're at. And Stuart and Joe can expand on that, but that's sort of my 30,000 foot take.
No, I think it's the tip of the spear, which we've always been. It's like, take the fight to them. If the Democratic Party wants to follow along or learn from it, fine. But if they're not, we step up, we jump in, we are the tip of the spear. Now they're all talking about, hey, we need to create, why don't we have our own media outlets? Well, we've been saying it's time for us to stop renting. They own, we rent. We're going to create things like Resolute Square, tip of the spear again, to get people to understand this is a media outlet, an information hub, to get the truth out and to take the disinfo and the garbage on. And now they're saying we've been saying, hey, we have no networks of our own. So, again, says us, Blue Sky, there's all kinds of things happening out there, but we need to own our own network, our own social network, And so, says us is just one approach to that, but there's many. The point is, it's leading on all fronts to make our arguments on social on our terms, not theirs, not following in the X algorithm, on our terms, creating a media outlet for other voices in the pro-democracy movement, beyond just Democrats, but independents, never-Trumpers, Republicans who care more about democracy and taking this crap on. And again, on the tactics of 2026 and getting ready, like Rick said, I think, again, it's why I joined the Lincoln Project in the first place and why I helped with all of you to create Resolute Square. We've got to be there when no one else is. And it'll take time for others for the party, the DNC, for candidates to percolate out there of all stripes. But that's not our problem. Our problem is taking it to Trump and this administration and taking on these appointments, taking on the garbage that's going to show up to take out the FBI and other places, right, and go after the enemies within, and all that. Anyway, I'll get off my horse, but that's why I'm here and why I'm glad you're all here too.
Go ahead, Stuart. You were going to answer.
I was just going to say quickly that I think it's very important that no one get in a mindset that because you lost, you're wrong. I grew up in Mississippi, and I can remember sitting around as a kid, my parents supporting these candidates for office who were not segregationists. And they lost a lot. They lost a lot, and they lost a lot. But that didn't make them think, well, maybe we should rethink that segregation is good. It just made them recommit to it. And then at a certain point started winning. And there aren't any more avowed segregationists running. So I think that's just a lesson that we're right, they're wrong. They won an election very narrowly, but that doesn't mean that what the vision that they have for the country is a vision that is sustainable, because this Trump coalition is very much unsustainable, I think, which we'll probably get into. And I think that we should all just recommit to it. Any big movement in American history has always had 2 steps forward and 1 backwards. And this will be the same.
Stuart, but that's part of it. Part of what I think the mindset has to be is this has been a movement of theirs for 30, 40 years, that was building towards this, building to take over power, to impose their will on the American people the way they see it. And I think the Democrats, the opposite, whatever, the pro-democracy side has always been looking at, this is a democracy, we'll do it in the next election. And I think what the Lincoln Project has been doing is, and what I think is important for other people to get is, no, we have to think about this as a movement. This has to be a pro-democracy movement with our media, with our social networks, with our information hub, with our people spreading our videos, moving our message out, and taking it. It's a long-term, it's a movement, not the next campaign. We got to win the next campaign, but we have to really build and own our messaging, not keep renting from these assholes that then take the money, the $3 billion that they spent on TV, they rake the profits and then spend it to buy more media outlets to make it even tougher. We can't keep doing that.
Yeah. So I have found it incredibly frustrating since we'll give everybody a week after the election to kind of come out of this shell shock and get ready to get in the fight again. If you hold public office, right? Like, there's only so long that if people elected you to do a goddamn job, that you get to sit back and lick your wounds before you go out and start doing your job again. Like, we all didn't get to take time off, but I feel like the Democrats are silent. And everybody can have their opinions on the Hunter Biden pardon and whether or not that broke norms But the media is fixated on that. And the norms that are getting broken constantly right now, we don't have a normal transition happening. We don't have FBI background checks happening on these monsters who are being selected by Trump. How the hell do we get both the Democrats and the media? They're not all going to do it, but I feel like even folks who got it before are not being loud enough now, talking about just how abnormal this is and holding some feet to the fire.
Well, I have one observation about that, and leadership starts at the top in the House and the Senate. I'm just going to say it as bluntly as I can. I think Chuck Schumer should not have run to be majority leader or minority leader again in the Senate. He is not a guy who wants to effectively communicate. I talked to somebody today who told me that Chuck Schumer said, "Well, we're going to pick our fights on these nominees. We're going to find the time and the place to let the press expose who they are." And all I could think of was,
that's worked well.
What world do you live in? These guys have gotten a free ride from the media for so long that it boggles the mind. And so my understanding of their thinking is, you've got to go to war, in my view, with these people all the time, every day. You cannot let any of them have a free pass or escape. You can't let any of them get away with pretending this is normal.
Yeah, Joe. Go ahead.
No, Rubio should be asked everything he said about Trump before.
Yes,
in the
Joe.
hearings, it should be like, go after them, one after the other. You said this. You did. Which one are you today? I mean, take it on. We really need. Look, two things. One, if you expected journalism to stand up to this moment, think again. Not going to happen.
Nope.
I mean, come on, what movie have you all been watching? That's not going to happen. So, and the same thing, frankly, with sort of with Schumer, et cetera. I mean, some of the Democratic committees and things. Look, what's going to happen there, having lived in this party and worked in, through 9 or 10, I don't know how many presidential cycles now, there's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 candidates come out of the woodwork of all different flavors, left, center, fire-breathing, a fire-breathing resistance leader, whatever, you name it. That fight is going to, it's going to start, it's going to be around everything from DNC chair to and frankly, it didn't happen in the Senate, where it would have been good to have that kind of campaign for
absolutely.
Even if it ended up with Schumer again, it would have been good to have it, but it's not happening. And I think that's part of what happened to us in this election, was that everything was the same. I mean, Hakeem wasn't Nancy, but but there wasn't enough changing of the guard, and even Kamala, it was with 100 days to go.
Right.
I just think that fight is going, basically whoever wins the primary in 2028 on the Democratic side is going to define the message of the Democratic Party, whether anybody loves it, whatever. That's what's going to happen, and there's not a whole lot that we can do. Obviously, we can, as we see that develop, but fundamentally, somebody's got to be taking on this administration from the get-go and standing guard over democracy while the party sorts itself out, because it's going to take a while for Democrats to sort themselves out and stop doing the firing squad, which they're going to do, or stop the non-apology tour, which is the other interesting and crazy part. I just can't believe it.
Lisa,
well,
do you have questions?
What's that?
Do you have questions? We're supposed
yeah,
to. I just don't want people to feel like they're not.
No, we're starting to get into what some of the questions are. So I do want to go ahead
let's
jump
keep
into
roll.
those.
Let's roll on some actual questions for sure.
Yeah. So Rick, this first one is for you. What are our I'm going to have Sam go ahead and throw it up. What are our global allies thinking right now? How will this incoming administration impact our global standing, not just during the administration, but we did the whole "we're back" thing once, right? The U.S. is back. What do we get to say now?
We're sorry. I mean, look. Here's the thing. If Marco Rubio was Secretary of State for just random name out of the hat, Ron DeSantis or Mitt Romney, he would probably go to Europe and continue to keep our NATO alliances in position. He'd probably go to the Pacific and keep our Pacific alliances with Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand in a coordinated and way that you would understand. Marco Rubio, who is going to shoot through the Senate like shit through a goose, is going to now be on a short leash from Donald Trump. He's going to have to carry Donald Trump's message of saying to our European allies, you have to get out of Ukraine so Putin can win. You have to stop funding and supplying weapons to Ukraine so Putin can win. He is going to be up for sale to the Chinese, as he was last time, and put our alliances in I mean that of Trump, not Rubio. He's going to put our alliances at risk. And if you have a national security advisor like Tulsi Gabbard, who you can count on her being Assad and Putin's number one fangirl, not traditionally things that are recognized as desirable employment traits for the national security apparatus of the United States. Look, you're going to end up, I think, with an awful lot of disappointment by our allies. They're going to be worried. They're going to be concerned. You're going to also see this global authoritarian movement celebrating every day. The Russian media reporter Julia Davis, who I strongly recommend, was covering one of the Russian talk shows the other night. And they're like, oh, Tulsi Gabbard is our girl. We're so happy with Trump's picks for national security advice. We're so happy about it. You know, that should tell you almost everything you have to know.
Yeah.
I think it will also end up making the world more dangerous in a fundamental way, because here's the thing. Building nuclear weapons is not hard. It's not as hard as people think it is. Any sufficiently advanced Western or Eastern nation that can build reasonably complex mechanical and electronic devices can build a nuclear weapon, and they're going to. People have learned the lesson from Iran that if you have in North Korea, if you have a nuclear weapon, no matter how shitty, small, and chaotic your country is, you can't be touched. That's what a lot of countries in this world are going to do now, and I think it is something that no one has calculated in full the impact of.
Sam, we have a graphic from from Julia Davis, something that she had pulled on her Russian media monitor. Totally agree with Rick. Everybody should be following Julia Davis and reading Russian media monitor. This is a clip that she had. We're not going to show the clip, but this is a clip that she had from Russian state TV where they were giddy over Hegseth and Patel as two of the picks. And so, Stuart, this kind of goes right into our next question. What happens now, and Rick alluded to this, what happens to Ukraine under the new Putin-Trump presidency alliance that's happening? Obviously, the Russians seem pretty excited about it.
Well, there's worst case scenarios and bad case scenarios. I don't know how many good case scenarios there are. Though we really don't have a sense of how close Russia is to some sort of economic collapse. I mean, just as It was a shock when all of a sudden Wagner was marching toward Moscow. This is a country that is being stretched very thin, 25% interest rates, The ruble has collapsed. At a certain point, will the oligarchs really rise up and try to back someone? So we don't know that. But there are some positive signs that Trump isn't going to completely cut off Ukraine. But if he does, and he forces a ceasefire at the current status, this will be a huge win for Putin, and it will destabilize Europe. You know, we all grew up in a Pax Americana world where,
right,
take it for granted, you can get in the car in London and drive to Warsaw, have a great road trip. Well, that's not going to be possible if Ukraine becomes a Russian satellite.
right.
Be absolutely a return to darkness. And this Pax Americana was the greatest boon to our economy. It's why America got rich. And it's why Europe got rich. It was a win-win. So I think we all just have to do everything we can to try to put as much pressure as we can to support Ukraine, because it's in our best interest, besides being the morally right thing to do.
Right.
So, Joe, the next question is there a plan to address or combat Trump's plans? Who's the next Democratic Party leader? And I want to tie that back into what we were just talking about a little bit. Is there Democratic leadership emerging who will be able to do anything with those pro-Ukraine, pro-NATO people on the right to be able to put together enough of a coalition to hold this together?
Well, like I was saying, I really believe that there will be, within weeks, a month or two, 6 or 7, 8, 9 people who will be essentially running for the nomination in 2028 over the next 4 years. And I think each of them in their own way will be making, developing a following and taking it to the administration on different fronts. But I don't think we can wait for any of that. I also do think that both in the Senate and the House, the majorities are so fragile that we will. I think there will be plenty of obstacles put in the way of Trump winning. Some of these appointments and other things that we've got to. And I think new leaders will emerge. I mean, you remember who knew who Adam Schiff was prior to the last, the last 4 years. He emerged. Adam Kinzinger. I mean, plenty of people emerged out of on both. Again, some of them Republicans. I expect that to happen again. I think there will be people in the Republican caucus who step up on occasion when the moment is right to stop something. I think there are enough there that with Democrats and some Democratic leadership, we can prevent a lot more than people think we can, or more than Trump and his crazies think we can.
There is going to be some cross pressure, right? Because there are going to be people who are up in 2026 who are in vulnerable districts that if they go along with all the crazy shit that Trump wants them to, their seats are not going to be gimmies.
Right.
Yeah. And this gets into what Stuart's been saying all along. I agree with him, is that the coalition, the Trump coalition, is really fragile. If he starts deporting all these people, as Stuart has said, okay, so his Hispanic gains that he made, how long is that going to hold up as they see there? As let me tell you, there's no way you can do 10 million people without a lot of people who are citizens having their doors knocked on, or their families split up and taken away, or no, you grab the whole family, which is what they've been talking about. So that's not going to that's going to destroy a piece of the coalition. And if he doesn't do it, if it's just a head fake, the MAGA nuts are going to be upset. So, but that's just one issue. But you've got these all, in several different places, several different categories. And for Democrats in the pro-democracy side to exploit that and leverage those divisions, by the way they did to us, to the American people, but we need to be on point driving that wedge, and we'll be there. And I believe there will be Democrats in the House and the Senate who will be there. Some of them, we don't know who they are right now, but they will emerge. I guarantee it.
So, Rick, our next question, will Kash Patel really become FBI director and Hegseth really become Secretary of Defense? Is that as bad as it sounds?
Yes, they're both as bad as they sound.
Yes, it's worse.
Look, Hegseth is in a lot of trouble now. You've got at least 6 Republican senators now who have publicly said things that they find concerning about him. But most importantly, his own mother is on the record saying that he is an abusive character, that he abuses women. This is not a great thing. 10 of his colleagues tonight at Fox have said that his drinking concerned them because it was so frequent and so noticeable. Look, when you're the Secretary of Defense, and I say this having worked for a Secretary of Defense, it is a 24-hour-a-day job. It requires constant attention. It requires constant focus. You cannot be partying. You cannot be a guy who has complex personal life issues. He admitted in a deposition in his first divorce that he had 5 affairs in the space of 1 year. This is a guy who is a walking security compromise to our country.
Slightly distracted as well. That's not easy to juggle.
A little bit. Now, Kash Patel is a more dangerous character because in a lot of ways, Kash Patel is a more serious person. He is a guy who has vowed to use the power of government and the power of the FBI to persecute and prosecute Trump's enemies as he defines them. None of that's going to go well. That's going to be a very ugly moment, I think. And I am very concerned that Patel will be the guy that Trump goes to the mattresses for because he has fewer overt public scandals. So that's my thought on that.
So just a quick follow-up on that. There seems to be a lot of either getting very quiet or people who are already bending the knee to Trump to try to get back in his good graces. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to people why that doesn't work with an authoritarian? It doesn't. You're never going to curry enough favor with this man to be safe, and weakness is abhorrent.
They have failed to understand, even though there are hundreds of public examples now that Donald Trump does not forgive a slight. But the second thing they don't understand is that Donald Trump revels in humiliating people who try to come back to him. He loves it. Sure, some get their jobs back, but they'll always be on the shit list. They'll always be on the, oh God, is he just fucking with me? Is he going to fire me list? None of these people who think they're going to get something out of Trump get what they think they're going to get out of Trump. They should really, really strongly consider his long track record of screwing over the people closest to him. The only people he doesn't screw over are the ones that put him in legal jeopardy. And most of these people can't do that. Most of these people are going to end up having, this idea that, if I just kiss his ass enough, if I just go on Fox enough times, if I just have, the best social media posts I can do about this. I know somebody who's trying to get a job in the administration, who around mid-October, for the first time in years, tweeted about anything other than, anodyne BS subjects. Suddenly it was like, those lying cuck libtards need to learn a lesson from our manly man, Donald Trump. And he's probably going to get it, even though he wasn't on the good list, because he's kissed enough ass. But you're never safe with an authoritarian. You're never safe with a dictator. You're never safe with an autocrat. They will always find a way to hurt you again.
And you never get your integrity back. And that's worth something.
Yeah, but the media will be doing the bended knee too. They'll all start.
Well, they are, right?
No, but that's.
Yeah.
If we think the both sidesism is gonna, it's gonna the normalization is going to continue apace now, like a hockey stick, because they want access. They all the reasons. I mean, it's all about clicks and eyeballs, and they're going to move. And yeah, it's going to make it tough. That's again gets back to why you need to have channels of our own that that fight this stuff, because they're not going to do it. The journalism is dead.
Yeah. All right. On that cheery note, let's go on to talking about the hell that women are going to face and why women decided to vote for Trump. Trump administration will be terrible for women. Why did a majority of white women vote for Trump? I'm going to use this as an opportunity for a not so shameless plug, because Andra doesn't work for Resolute Square, but we do publish a lot of her writing. Andra Watkins, she publishes a Substack that's called For Such a Time as This. And she is doing a series right now that is the first in the series is a comparison is the thief of joy, why Christian nationalist women really hate women. So I encourage everyone to read Andra Watkins' Substack. Also, pick up a copy of Jesus and John Wayne by Kristen Dumais. Yeah. There are deep, troubling reasons why white women, especially white evangelical women, keep voting the way that they do. I found Andra's piece really fascinating because she really talks a lot about envy and self-hatred and regret within Christian nationalism among women, and how that comes out as attacking other women. So I encourage you to read everything that both of those women write. They're really brilliant on the subject. Stuart, I have one for you. We heard some about this before the election, but even more now. Is there a valid argument for just letting it all burn so people see what they voted for and we can start all over again?
Well, I think there's a temptation to do that, but the real world consequences of that are so painful to people. I mean, you could sit around the dorm room late at night and say, well, let them deport everybody. Then they'll see that how we have concentration camps in America, and that'll be such a terrible image. But it's not so great for the people getting deported and the ramifications for it across the economy and everything. So I don't really buy that. I mean, you could say the same with Ukraine. Let them take Ukraine and see that Ukraine's turned into a giant concentration camp. Once again, we'll have concentration camps that are a 6-hour drive from Harry's Bar in Venice.
And we can say, I told you so when France falls.
Yeah.
That'll be a great moment.
I think that is tempting, but it's not an indulgence that should be indulged. I think we have to continue to fight on every front that we can.
Yeah, look, I think people wanted change and reform and and shaking up Washington and all that stuff clearly, but I'm not sure that that the American people really want to burn down the whole thing. And Bannon does. I mean, Bannon does. Kash Patel, plenty of them do. But the problem, I agree with Stuart, the problem with that is, it's the same people like, oh, a wildfire just burns down the whole forest, and that's actually a good thing because like new shoots come up and a whole new ecosystem develops. Yeah, except for one small problem. Everything in the freaking forest dies, everything. And it takes 20, 30 years for those green shoots to actually develop into an livable ecosystem. So these guys are out to burn the whole freaking thing down. I don't believe that's what the American people intended. And by the way, it wasn't a landslide. It was very tight, close race. And so, no, there are plenty of people who don't want to burn it down. And that's why I think we've got to stand and fight for every square inch of our democracy, and not let it go uncontested.
Totally agree. Hey, Sam, I want to jump ahead to question number 8. Ties in nicely with what Joe was just saying, and we were just talking about with letting it burn all down. So, Rick, Democrats are a mess right now. The GOP, as we knew it, is dead. So who do people support now? Is it a new party? Are we not going to have any more elections anyway? So it doesn't really matter if we have this whole silly 2-party system anymore? What do we do next?
The difficulty that we have right now is there is one party that is overtly running and governing, or they will be governing in a way that they are saying overtly, we're going to end small d Democratic and small r Republican rule in this country. We should be deeply, profoundly concerned about that, because if they do, we're in a much darker and more dangerous world than anyone could imagine. Now, the Democrats, I swear to God, there are days I wake up and just wonder, like, how did we ever lose an election to these people? Ever. They are divided. They are having their big internal civil war. They're all fighting on the margins of the real question right now, and they're not facing up to the truth that Donald Trump was able to activate things in our country, that no policy statement, no focus group, no AI analyzed, algorithmically generated TV ad is ever going to do. They have fought way too long with way too little heart. I don't know how long the Republicans can hold this coalition together. I think when Trump goes, whether it's tomorrow or 2 years from now or 4 years from now, it will be more difficult to do what Trump has done because he is sui generis in every way. It's harder to imagine, a J.D. Vance running the same kind of national campaign as Trump just ran and succeeding in doing so. People would like that, but it's not as easy as people think. I don't underestimate the vast consequences and difficulties of trying to put a third party together. A few of us have done that. It is really hard. It is damn near impossible. I don't recommend it. You have to get about 5 to 7 years of a head start on ballot access. And by the way, we got an election coming up, folks, in a mere 4 years. So, and another big election coming up in 2 years. So we've got to work with what we've got at the moment. I hope that it is possible to reform the Democratic Party so that it fights better and fights harder and gets its head away from some of these dead end, demographics is destiny arguments that have shaped it for too long. Because if that argument is still one that Democrats are making next year and Trump forces end up taking 25, 35% of Hispanic and Black African-American men again, that's the end of the Democratic Party. They need to get their shit together on this stuff and fast.
So, Stuart, as we're waiting for the Democratic Party to get their shit together, for regular Americans, what does effective resistance or being the opposition party look like? What what can people be doing these next, other than, we always tell, donate to democratic causes, or small d democratic causes. What can people be doing way beyond that, on more local, personal levels?
Well, look, I think one of the most important things to do is the easiest things to do, and that is to encourage each other, not to let yourself and those around you to fall into some sort of despair, because nothing positive will come out of that. I think it's really important to think about those who have gone before and what they went through. What did African Americans go through in this country? I mean, they were enslaved, they were murdered, they were raped, tortured, not to vote. Did they react like what happened on January 6, 21? No. They didn't storm the Capitol. They worked harder and they registered voters. And they didn't lose this sort of basic faith in what it means to be an American. So I think that's a really important action that you can take. And I think that the local elements of this are hugely important. School board races, local county elections, local legislative elections. That is really where a lot of the greatest danger is. You take over these election processes, you take over the state legislature. The Georgia legislature votes that it's legal for the Georgia legislature to overturn the popular vote. When they do it, you won't be able to say it's illegal. So, I think a lot of times the greater the task has this very human tendency to paralyze us rather than encourage us. It's easier to train for a 5K than a marathon, when in reality you should train harder and longer for a marathon. So I think to try to get little victories and to think of it as a process, and to remind yourself of what are the stakes. And what is it, the thing, Rick, that Navalny says? That
you are not allowed to give up.
Right. So I think that's the most important. And it's all very doable.
I'd add to that, the big difference too, I talked about already, the movement versus the campaign, every 2 years, the campaign thing. But the reality is, knocking on doors every 2 years in October is not going to undo the relentless, every second relentlessness of their poison that they seep through and use in their networks. There, the Democrats, and I've watched this. We're going to go. The campaign ended. It just disappeared. There's no voice out there. There's no. I mean, it's just the way we are. I mean, I'm talking about my party now, not those of us who understand the threat. But they'll go away and start up again in 9 months, 13 months. They'll start up again for 2026. The other side, they've been relentless for 30, 40 years, and they're out there right now. More poison, more attacks, Hunter Biden, the pardon, the whole thing. They never stop. They are relentless. And we have got to be the same way on the pro-democracy side. That's what Lincoln Project, what Resolute Square, what says us. I mean, that's the thing we've got to start to build. And I just think the party needs to step into that. I mean, whoever takes this on as the candidate in 2028 and candidates in 2026 have to start being relentless now. Create their channel, their followers, their social media folks, and we help provide the channels and the amplification for that, because it doesn't exist. It's got to be relentless, and it's got to be a movement, and it's got to be every minute of the day like they do to us.
Absolutely. Sam, can you throw up question number 11 for us, please? I think because people have had a hard time, there was such an expectation that Kamala Harris was going to win, that the desire to believe that there are conspiracies, both Trump being compromised by Putin, but also conspiracies around the election being stolen. I hear too many people talking about the election and sounding like Trump supporters from 2020. Do you think Trump and company are actually compromised by Putin? Is there a grand conspiracy out there?
It's worse. It's worse. He doesn't have to be compromised by Putin. He's on Putin's side. He's his friend. He's his fan. He loves Putin. He loves the things that Putin represents: authoritarianism, the entire ugly, corrupt Russian power structure. Donald Trump looks at it and says, "Give me some of that." They could have tape of Donald Trump fucking a goat. It wouldn't matter. He'd be Vladimir Putin's best buddy no matter what. And so, like, the idea of a conspiracy to explain Trump's behavior, it fails the Occam's razor test. Trump is an authoritarian asshole. He's going to love other authoritarian assholes. It's almost definitional.
I'm so glad you said that, Rick. It's the most obvious answer, and we all see it constantly from the guy, and we know that he's been a fan of Hitler. But before he knew who Putin was, he was already a Hitler fanboy. Yep. Why would we expect that somebody has to be blackmailing him for him to act like an authoritarian asshole? It's an easy thing to do if that's what you are. Correct. Just be yourself. All right. Next question. Stuart, how bad's it going to get? And we had a number of people ask who are our regular subscribers, members, supporters, join us for a lot of these shows. Will there be a time that we need to get out, and will we know when that is? And I don't know how literally we have to take that, but it certainly represents the degree of fear that a lot of people are feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to not be afraid is not to be afraid, and to fight back. I don't. To walk away is to surrender. So, do you want to live with that the rest of your life? That's not really a positive self-image. Ultimately, there's a deep element of incompetent stupidity amongst Trump when you look at the people that he's appointing and their ability to carry out these threats. A lot of it is bluster. You have Corey Lewandowski, who now has a position in Homeland Security. This is a guy who was arrested for trying to bring a gun into the Capitol through a mag. He tried to put a gun through a metal detector in the Capitol. So that's
who would have known that was going to set it off?
That's sort of the level of this. And so I think not only is it important not to do that personally, but when others talk about it, to encourage them to don't give up on America. In this biography of Biden called The Last Politician that Frederick Foer wrote, which is a sweet book. Yeah, really sweet. He quotes this recurrent phrase that Biden used, "Don't bet against America." And I still believe that. I thought Biden could have won, and I thought Harris was going to win. Okay, I was wrong. She didn't. But I don't think it changes anything fundamental about America. I think that it reveals who the Republican Party is. And we've said this for a long time. Trump didn't hijack the party, he revealed it. But I don't think he revealed what the greater sense of being an American is. And that's what we need to reinforce.
Yeah, something like 30% of Americans voted for Trump, 30% of Americans voted for Harris, slightly less than 30, and 30-something% stayed home, didn't vote. That's not a whole, and then you get to who voted, it was 49, something like it. It was, essentially there are plenty of us, we just need to be unafraid and take it on. And I'll just tell one quick story. When I was, I infamously worked for John Edwards when he got caught with taking the campaign money and doing the, and hiding the baby and all that stuff. And my ex-wife called me up one day and said, 2 FBI agents have knocked on my door looking for you. And this is like 2,000 miles away. I hadn't lived there in over a decade. 3 months later, my wife calls me up and says, 2 FBI agents have knocked on our door and they're looking for you. And by the way, this was when I was on the nightly news every single night as a analyst for a major network. And all you had to do is Google Joe Trippi and you would see exactly what studio I was going to be in Washington or New York on what night. It took them three months. And when they finally got to me, it was like, we've been looking all over for you. And this was like, and I know Stuart's dad was an FBI agent, but this was the competent FBI. So with these guys in charge, and what they're going to be doing to disrupt it and tear it apart, is just unbelievable to me. To one, that they're going to do it, but they are, and two, that in some way will make it more efficient, and they'll be able to find. I just think this is a lot of the fears out there. Turn that into action is the most important thing we can do.
Okay, here's our final question. Sam, can you pop up number 14? Where I come from, corruption and abuse of the law is commonplace. How do we come back from the erosion of democratic principles and the rule of law once Trump is gone? First, I appreciate so much about this question that this person is absolutely confident that Trump is going to be gone, because I think there are people who worry that that's never going to happen. And it is. Trump will be gone, will do the work, but there will be damage done when he leaves. So Rick, what's that process like? We know Poland's going through that now.
Look, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. There are some scenarios where the collapse of Trumpism, like the old Hemingway description of bankruptcy, suddenly or slowly, then all at once, and there are scenarios where Americans look at the map as it is and say no more. This happened to us in three times in our lifetimes when it comes to Congress and the Senate. In 1994, the Democrats had a 54-seat majority in the House. Americans got tired of it. They didn't want it, and they blew them out. They put a Republican majority in 1994. In 2006, the Democrats and Americans were tired of the war, tired of economic stagnation, and tired of Wall Street getting away with murder, and they blew out the Republicans. And in 2010, the Democrats overstepped in the minds of millions of Americans on that uppity black president doing things with healthcare that they went and they voted out, and it was 46 that year. These swings are possible, and it resets what the parties do. That after that lesson in 1994, Bill Clinton came out and said, the era of big government is now over. Barack Obama admitted, he goes, I got a shellacking. George Bush checked out largely after that, understanding that the advice he'd been given to spend his political capital was bad advice. All these things have added up over time. Trumpism is a uniquely pernicious movement, but it also has the vulnerabilities that every other pernicious movement has. It is inhuman. It is cruel. It is a thing driven by spectacle, not substance. There are a lot of ways where this thing goes sideways for them. They will violently try to fight that. It will be very ugly, but they're only going to win if we stop fighting them.
That is a perfect place to stop. So I'm gonna wrap this up here, unless. And does anyone have parting thoughts that they want to leave our wonderful subscribers and members with tonight?
I want to thank everybody so much for all your support. It means so much. It really does.
Yeah. We are running a member special just for a couple of days. So if you are not yet a member, 50% off all annual memberships. The code is there, Cyber Resist. That's through the end of the day tomorrow. We also have through the end of the day tomorrow a discount on all of our merchandise. If you go to resolutesquare.shop, you will see the code there to get a discount on merch. And then tomorrow night, we have our new show with Maya May, Punching Up. Her guest is Jason Stanley. That's going to be a really excellent conversation. He is another person you should be reading. He's got a great new book. Enemies List, twice a week. Make sure you always listen to everything that Rick Wilson has to say. And then do the same thing with Joe Trippi on Fridays when we have a new episode every week of that Trippi show. The Lincoln Project podcast, also must listen appointment podcast. We have Decoding Fox News. Thursday night, always tune in for the breakdown with Rick and Maya. And I think I hit all of it. Go to resolutesquare.com and read the incredible stuff that these really important writers are working so hard to get vital information out to everyone. Read it, share it, support it. And thank you, everyone, for everything you're doing for Resolute Square and for democracy. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.